SBC Media.
Welcome to the iGaming Daily Podcast, analysing the news from the betting and gaming industry all over the globe, supported by Optimove, the #1 CRM marketing solution for the iGaming market.
Guess who's back again. Yes, it is Spain. Tell a friend. The iGaming industry can't seem to catch a break in Spain as the government continues to enforce new rules and requirements for regulated operators in order to, quote-unquote, improve player protection. Will this turn out as just another hurdle companies will have to overcome to remain compliant with no serious effect on consumer behavior? Will this suffocate the industry or even the players, forcing the market into the unregulated side? Welcome to iGaming Daily, where we will try to answer these questions and more. I'm Fernando, Noodt, media manager for SBC, and today I'm joined by SBC Noticias editor Lucía Gando. Lu, how are you today?
Hello, Fer. Hello, Damian. I'm so happy to be part of this discussion today, and a big shout out to Anaya, who helped me free myself from Mojo.
Yeah, if you saw some of the social snippets from our previous episode with Lu, you might have noticed something in the background there. It might or may not have been a certain character from a certain show, which for copyright reasons shall remain unnamed from now on. Someone who is also with us today, Damian Martinez, business journalist for SBC Noticias. Dami, how are you today?
All good, Fer. All good. It's always good to be joining us, you too.
Yeah, it's always good to you too. You too. You made me think of Bono and YouTube. It's not a Sunday, Bloody Sunday. It's a Tuesday. Lucky Tuesday or something. I don't know. Maybe let's leave that for now, but rather start with another episode of iGaming Daily, supported by Optimove, the creator of positionless marketing and #1 player engagement platform. Thank you very much, Optimove. And so we were saying Spain continues to enforce new rules, new regulations, or rather than enforce, it's actually pushing them because it's not a done deal yet, but they are indeed pushing for new rules, let's say, for the gaming industry that may be seen as restrictions, may be seen as just plain regulations, but the regulated operators, of course, will have to comply with this. So the DGOJ, the Directorate General of Gambling in Spain, has revealed further plans for player protections, like we mentioned, and monitoring control. So why don't we start first by breaking this down?
Yes, Fer, like you say, the DGOJ is working on a centralized deposit limit system for online gaming. The project, which is still pending for final approval, plans to create a player portal that will allow the government to jointly monitor the deposits made by users on different regulated platforms. Unlike the current model, in which each online gaming operator manages the limits independently, the new tool will require verification of each deposit to ensure that each player maintains a margin within the established limits. According to the draft, the default limits are set at €600 per day, €1,500 per week, and €3,000 per month. In addition, the system incorporates a flexible mechanism that will allow users to reduce these limits or even eliminate them, although the changes will not take effect until 3 days have passed and can only be modified once per quarter. This seeks to avoid impulsive decisions and maintain a stable protection framework. On the other hand, operators will have to warn their customers when they approach or exceed the limits and clearly explain how the new platform works.
I think there's a few points to be considered. Like we mentioned in the last episode we did on Spain with Damian and Ted Memure, Ted was mentioning how the Spanish regulators need to actually set out how the technical aspect of this will work. So we'll have to wait and see how they decide to enforce the technical aspect of this centralized monitoring system, centralized limit for betting. And the other thing is to see how this will impact on the industry, because, of course, if you can only make a change in 3 months, like starting when you make the change, 3 months pass, and then you can modify those limits that you you set on yourself. Maybe if you set a limit that was too low for you, you may decide to like go or to another operator, or even to the unregulated market, because you will not have, like, if this is centralized, you wouldn't be able to go to another regulated operator. So if a player thinks they want to keep betting, they might turn to the illegal market if this is centralized. If the DGOJ decides to enforce the centralized system and it works as it's apparently going to work, maybe this can turn players to the unregulated market. And of course, playing limits are a necessary tool for player protection, because of course you don't want players to play to consume any product like in excess. But yeah, we have to #wait and see if this turns out to be enforced, how it will impact the industry. But how has the industry actually reacted to this announcement?
Yes, it's always a risk, right, to damage the legal market and promote the illegal one. Overall, the industry is now super worried and attentive to the outcome, although most operators, if not all, understand the importance of responsible gaming measures and see this as a part of a wider effort to protect both players and the market's integrity. We know that Spain has shown a tendency to over-regulate and damage the general landscape, the legal landscape. So there's also concern about how these new obligations will affect user experience and business operations. And some companies believe the constant introduction of restrictions could reduce engagement and even discourage casual players, which will turn to illegal operators. While the industry acknowledges the government's intention of protecting players and set responsible measures, there's still tension around finding the right balance between player protection and market sustainability.
Yeah, I think you hit the spot right there. Balance is the key word for this whole thing, because you want to protect the industry, but you also want to protect the players. And enforcing some restrictions may eventually turn players into the unregulated market, which will, of course, not comply with your regulations, because why would it? It doesn't have a license and it doesn't have any obligations with you. So, of course, then there's the government's responsibility of going after those unregulated operators and shut them down or prevent them from operating within their market, in this case, in the Spanish market. But do you actually think that this will have an effect that may drive players to the illegal market, or do you think it can be helpful for player protection?
Well, as we said, that's definitely one of the main risks when regulation becomes too strict or limits players' autonomy too much. Some users start looking for alternatives outside the legal system. So we are all worried about it. In Spain, we've already seen that unlicensed operators tend to use this kind of moment to attract players, offering fewer restriction or accuracy bonuses or whatever is more attractive at that time. So there's a real possibility that overregulation could push a portion of the audience towards illegal platforms, which are exactly the ones that offer no protection at all. So it would be harmful for the industry. The challenge then is to design a regulation that protects players without creating that kind of effect that finally compensating the illegal companies, right?
Right, absolutely. But also there's a trend in governing bodies, in regulators, in governments, lawmakers and all that, that whenever there's an issue with the gaming industry in particular, they just decide to go after a restriction. But not many look into education, which is a key element into developing an educated player in order to prevent the bad side, let's say, of any industry. So a recent report actually shows that teenagers in Spain have not been educated on how iGaming works. Dami, can you elaborate on that?
Yes, the DGOJ has revealed that according to a survey, more than half of students have not received sufficient information on the risk of gambling, despite that the average age of initiation being almost 14 years. This is one of the main reasons that they are taking these kind of measures to protect players. Also, the document warns of a significant lack in educational prevention. Only 48% of young people recall having received information about problems associated with gambling, a figure significantly lower than in other areas, such as the misuse of technology or the use of legal drugs. The analysis also reveals that almost 1 in 5 teenagers admits to having gambled with real money at some point. 16% did so in traditional physical venues, compared to 9% who opted for online platforms. Furthermore, while 13% of 14 years old have already gambled with real money, the figure rises to 19% at age 17.
Yeah, definitely something to look into the approach on teenagers, because you can't just say, hey, you can't bet, you are underage. You have to educate them and tell them, well, this is how the industry works, this is how this is what the regulated market is, this is what can happen to you if you bet on the illegal market once you are of age to bet, and all that kind of stuff that will eventually develop an educated player when they actually grow old enough to bet on online or land-based as well. But of course, the online side is more susceptible of having illegal platforms available rather than the physical side of things. But for now, we're going to do a very quick break, and we will continue discussing what's going on in Spain, because this is not the only news over the last few days. So go grab a glass of water, and we'll be right back with more iGaming Daily.
SBC Leaders connects the gambling industry's top-tier operators and associations to share the best ideas, collaborate on solving the biggest issues, and push innovation throughout the betting and gaming industry. If you're an operator and want to join the discussion, visit sbcleaders.com for more information.
And we're back with more iGaming Daily to continue discussing what's going on in Spain, where, like we said, the DGOJ is pushing for a centralized monitor system to actually enforce limits on betting, like a centralized limit system for all platforms. But it's not the only requirement it is pushing on iGaming, as it also seems to be looking into recycling the Royal Decree of 2020 and its conditions, which have been, of course, very much criticized by the gaming industry, right?
Yes, fair. It looks like Spain is going all out against the online gaming industry, because Pablo Bustinduy, Spain Minister of Consumer Affairs, has announced that online gambling sites will be required to display a sign warning about the risk of online gaming, which will include problem gambling and financial losses. There will be 3 different messages, and they will have the same format as the message that appear on cigarette packs warning about the risk of smoking. The message will read, and I quote, "Problem gambling is a risk of gaming. The probability of being a gambler who loses money is 75%, and losses for all gamblers are 4 times greater than their winnings." These messages will be presented in an accessible manner, according to Bustinduy, because they will be shown on gambling site displays and in their online advertising, such as banners or videos on social media.
Could this actually mean that, I mean, they are of course looking into enforcing this image in the gaming industry, where it's like all kinds of bad things can happen to you, which of course some of there's a potential of happening, but like we said, it's not all about telling people, hey, this is bad for you, because like the government is not people's parents, right? But I feel like it's more of a matter of education. But could this push for this publicity on iGaming or on gambling mean that the government is considering a return of this gambling ad ban that was overturned by the justice ruling recently?
Yes, they're definitely going all out. The minister also mentioned the customer service law that is currently being processed in the Congress. The approval of this legislation will also serve to reinstate the regulation of gambling advertising and will prevent the use of celebrities in ad campaigns or welcome bonuses, which they claim are aimed specifically at young audiences.
Yeah, Spain has certainly been very active, like we mentioned, when it comes to regulating the iGaming industry. I think that aside from what I just said about the government being maybe too overprotective of the people, they do need to enforce rules for the industry to follow and to think about player protection. But also the industry needs to take a step forward and from within enforce some measures and reconsider some strategies to develop a healthy environment for everyone and to prevent that, of course, to prevent more restrictive decisions from governments to be enforced and to be pushed. So, like I was saying, Spain has been very active when it comes to regulating the iGaming industry and restricting what it can and can't do. So what effects has this approach had so far? And what do you think may happen if they continue to enforce such strict measures on operators?
Well, as you mentioned, Spain is a regulatory example, especially in Latin America. We know that the regulatory approach there has clearly made the market more transparent and accountable. So that's good news, especially for Latin America that is kind of copying the framework. It is a major example for Argentina, Brazil, Colombia, the markets that were regulated after Spain. And it has improved. Data monitoring helped identify at-risk players and reduce exposure among younger audiences. So that's good. But on the other side, it's also increased operational pressure on licensed companies. That's always the complaint. And smaller operators are finding it harder to stay compliant, and we might see more market concentration as a result. The same is happening in Colombia. The same is happening in Brazil. So if Spain continues with this level of strictness, I think we'll see an even more professionalized industry on one side, but a smaller one, like a reduced one. The key will be whether these policies can evolve to remain effective without suffocating innovation and suffocating investment. So we'll see.
Yeah, we'll wait and see. But if you want to keep up to date with everything that goes on around Spain, its regulation, and of course, regulation across all of Latin America, make sure you are subscribed to SBC Noticias newsletter. So go to sbcnoticias.com and find the newsletter button. Go there. And you can also click the boxes for every other newsletter in the SBC Media Network and subscribe to everything so you are up to date with Latin America, Spain, and the worldwide industry. But for now, we will, again, wait and see. We will continue to report. Lucía and Damian will continue to report on this and whatever may come in the future. But for now, this has been all for today in iGaming Daily. Thank you very much, Lou. Thank you very much, Dami. And thank you, Anaya McDonald, for producing this episode and removing that character from Lou's background. I'm Fernando Noodt. And to our listeners out there, we'll meet you in the next one. Goodbye.
Thank you for listening to today's iGaming Daily podcast, supported by Optimove, the #1 CRM marketing solution for the iGaming market. If you want to find out more about some of the subjects raised today, feel free to explore any of the sites in the SBC News Network or check out the latest edition of the SBC Leaders magazine. Happy reading.